On Thursday morning, a group of activists and journalists met at a South Minneapolis community center to call attention to what they see as a trend: police increasingly targeting citizen media makers in the run-up to the Republican National Convention. Those gathered included Cam Gordon of the Minneapolis City Council, as well as representatives of the RNC Welcoming Committee and the Coalition to March on the RNC. But the most compelling stories came from a few others. Vlad Teichberg and Olivia Katz of the New York-based Glass Bead Collective told of their detention by police earlier this week. Officers stopped them and, without charge or consent, confiscated their video and computer equipment, as well as personal notes. Daryl Robinson, who documents police activity in his role as vice president of Communities United Against Police Brutality, told of an incident last month in which he says he was beat up by police when he was monitoring a downtown homeless shelter. He was pushed to the ground by officers and his camera was crushed. And Sherry Honkala, head of the People's Economic Human Rights Campaign, told about her arrest at a sit-in on Tuesday at the local Housing and Urban Development Office, and how a KSTP reporter was shoved into an elevator by police who aimed to prevent the reporter from covering the story. Given these police responses, the groups met to call for police restraint at the RNC, and for citizen journalists to take to the streets to document the convention. Here are a few excerpts from their press conference.
And journalists are just out there doing their jobs, and they should be allowed to cover all kinds of things that are happening each and every day, not just during the Republican National Convention.
It seemed like the confiscation was done prematurely before there was really much evidence. I think we've tried to send the signal as a city council that it should be pretty extreme when anybody's cameras or recording equipment are confiscated. There should be clear indication that it's going to be used as evidence in a trial, and then it's acceptable. There's also, if somebody's arrested and they have these things, then they should be inventoried and they should be, preserved intact and given back to that person when they're released. So there are instances where it seems justified constitutionally, but that wasn't necessarily followed in the spirit of that. One of the things that we really wanted to have in place during this entire RNC is a clear command structure so that these kind of decisions get made in a thoughtful way by people who prepared for it. So it's not just snap decisions. Now there'll be, I'm sure, instances where somebody feels like there's a crime in progress or there's some safety issue. I would suggest that when people are detained for over an hour, there's plenty of time for somebody to communicate with their supervisors and their other supervisors and get direction. I'm unclear whether or not that happened in this case.
The Minneapolis Police Department and various security forces in place who feel that they're going to try to go seize cameras are running a big risk. And the risk that they're running is that they're going to become the central story. I don't know if they want to be on national television accused and maybe even implicated in blatant attempt of suppression of coverage of events by using various legal or even illegal methods of seizing people's videotapes. This is now front and center across the whole country. People know about it. And basically, it would not be advisable to them at this point to try to suppress coverage. There was a mention that there needs to be a command structure, whatever, to determine when to take people's video cameras and videotapes. That shouldn't happen at all. Unless there's a bomb concealed in your video camera, you shouldn't confiscate the guy's video camera. That's our position. And if you are going to say, oh, the videotape needs to be used as evidence, that's great. Go to a judge, get a subpoena. The Journos will eventually turn over the tape if it is found to be legally binding. But it has to go through the judicial process. It cannot be a commander. It's not a question of an officer on the ground or some police lieutenant up in the headquarters. This is not up to police to decide whose camera gets to be taken when. It is up to the judge. That's why we have a judicial branch. And let's not forget that.
A few weeks back, I was doing cop watching down at the shelters downtown, and I was viciously attacked by the Minneapolis police. I just want to say that my cameras, my video cameras, my cell phone camera, all that was smashed to the ground and broken. I want to put on notice that there will be documentation and cop watching and photographing with the Poor People's March and the RNC. Communities United will be spearheading a cop watch around that event. So there will be accountability to all the law enforcement agencies working RNC.
None of these incidents that are going to be talked about here today are isolated incidents. They really do represent a very disturbing pattern and trend of targeting people.
I think it's incredibly important that more and more people see themselves as journalists, and that they bring out cameras, video cameras, you name it, to cover the activity of the police department. You know, Homeland Security is about, protecting the American people, and basically Homeland Security in this country has been about preempting the civil liberties and creating social control of people. And we've got to do something about that, because when we no longer have freedom of the press, you no longer live in a democracy.